Welcome to Eurojuegos Buenos Aires. I'm your host, Juan Carballal, and today we will be looking at the game design from Hafner and Shirley. Some of you may already know I've been working on for some months now as a developer, and it's hopefully coming soon from Legion Wargames, where it is still on pre-order. I'll put a link in the description for you. It is a two-player, card-driven, operational level historical wargame with point-to-point movement. The first installment actually of a series on the South American Wars of Independence. Now this one covers the struggles in the southernmost part of the continent, what is today Argentina, Uruguay, Paraguay, Chile and Bolivia, from about 1809 actually to 1820. The following games will cover the war in Gran Colombia and the liberation of Peru and Upper Peru further down the road. Whatever. What you will see here is the game in the Basel game engine, a digital tabletop platform. We used to playtest the game and try fixes and variants. In Basel I can play online with the designers or with other playtesters while talking via Skype, so it's a pretty handy tool for development. If you don't know about Basel, be sure to check it out again. I'll put the link in the description. Anyways, nothing, and I mean nothing you see here is final. Not the rules and definitely not the art, nothing. It is just to give you a sense of the scenario and the game portrays, how the game flows, the overall level of complexity and flavor and detail. That's it. I just hope you like it. I'll start with the rulebook since it is very short and will help me make sure I'm not overlooking something. The first thing we see in the description of the strategic picture is that there are three sides represented in the game: the Royalists, the Patriots and the Federals. The Royalists are loyal to Spain and enter from Peru in the north. The Patriots are based in Buenos Aires to the south and will try to liberate everyone. And the Federals, that care neither for the Spaniards nor for the folks in Buenos Aires and will fight any of both. And I might just say now, federalism in this case is a push to decentralize power, like in the French Revolution, but not like in the American Revolution, where federalism was a push to centralize power. You may keep that in mind. That is why federals hate patriots in Buenos Aires as much as they hate absolute monarchists in Lima. So this is actually a three sides two-player game, and this was one of the clever design elements that captured me going into the game. The game has only two important tracks you really need to pay attention to. One is the morale track, which represents the political will, if you like, of your side, and is more or less the number of actions you can take on a round, that is here in game time. The other important track is loyalty, which is how many provinces are loyal to your side. The objective of the game is to have at least 9, whatever. Loyal provinces at the end of the year round, or more provinces than your opponent if you reach the end of the game, which is after a decade of fighting. The rulebook is laid out with lots of images. Here we are seeing the components breakdown. We see there are two types of cards: the year event cards, which are especially powerful cards with historical events that each side plays at the start of each year. The other type of cards are operations cards, which are the normal movements and battle tactics of the Napoleonic era. Each side has a deck with about a dozen of these operation cards. And I might as well say now, if you see those blocks of text with the font in blue, well, those are not rules but design notes, examples or clarifications of edge cases. So it's like a rulebook with an FAQ intermingled, but you can clearly tell which is which. Then we have the components breakdown of the counters and markers. Remember, this is playtest art, so nothing you see here is final. But you can see we have counters for the mighty regular units and the light infantry units, cavalry units, artillery batteries and militia. Most of them double-sided with their own full strength combat rating and disorder combat rating. Aside of those, we have the fortresses, which can have up to 4 levels and may be blocked by sea or be supplied by sea. And finally, the generals with their own command rating and who can be federals or patriots or royalists. This is page 6, so we are already halfway through the rules. And we are just now looking at the game setup. So really, it is just 5 pages of rules, which is pretty streamlined for a wargame. But I think the extreme terrain features of the map and that produce like 3 or 4 simultaneous war fronts, combined with the historical event cards and a dozen different tactical approaches to each battle, there is enough emergent gameplay to make this game punch above its weight. So back to the rules. After the setup, you have a quick 1809 round in which some decisions are made by the players that affect the initial setup, so it is not quite the same every time. A nice detail, I think. That red list to the left that looks awful now, but will surely look prettier in the final version, is the game round sequence. Each round has 2 phases, one on which players alternate playing their cards until their side's morale runs out. That one is called the operations phase, and the other is a maintenance phase. It is called the year-end phase, in which you do a quick refresh of the markers and receive reinforcements, but it is all automatic and can be done by one player, so you can refill your drinks and go back to the action. So I like that. And the rulebook actually explains the same things 3 times. First, with a single line for each step of a phase in the round sequence list. Then with like 4 lines for each step in the round description, and then again with like 12 lines for each step in the chapters dedicated to each phase. So you first get the overall impression, then the main procedures, and then the details for each step of the round. And I found that this helps you to get into the game pretty smoothly. And then you can go back to the rules and find what you're looking for pretty easily if you need to. After all, it's just 5 pages and they are clearly referenced. I think almost all the basic operation cards appear in the rulebook in the section of the rules they affect, so you can find them quickly. And they have a note on their effects, which is also pretty handy. We have the field battle procedure, which is a core mechanism of the game. It starts with a reaction effect in which the defender may withdraw from the battlefield. Then each side may choose to split the army and use a flanking force that will take longer to enter the battlefield, but when they do, watch out. Then there's an artillery bombardment phase in which you may use hidden guns to surprise your enemy. Then there's close combat, in which a side may occupy some high ground. Then there's the effect of the generals that may rally back disordered units or actually flee the battle to save themselves. This goes on and on until one side is eliminated, or more likely chooses to retreat or even make an heroic last stand. A battle is usually resolved in about 3 rounds of combat, and I was amazed on how the game actually manages to portray very well the nuances of positional warfare. Finally, there's a pursuit step against a retreating army. You might have pulled the classic move on the rear if you expected that. And also a morale penalty to the defeated side. Remember, a side's morale determines the number of turns it can take in a near round, so losing battles anywhere affects the overall cohesion and political will of your side. So you just cannot forfeit a front and focus in only one direction, or the morale losses will come to bite you in your back. Finally, there is a procedure for resolving sieges that can be resolved by abandoning the siege, lifting the siege, or successfully capturing the fortress by effects of isolation. There's some bombarding during sieges or just straight storming of the fortress. But that's it. a 10 pages rulebook with only like 5 pages of procedures and 5 pages of description of the different elements of the game. How you read the cards, counters, and the map board mixed with several images and notes to make things clearer and easier to reference. I think there's a lot of gaming going on in the game in spite of having these few rules, but you'll see that for yourselves right now. So we go back to the Vassal module, we will open it, and since I will play this game solo, I'll choose to start a new game offline. In Vassal, you can join the game as either side if you have 2 players, or even as an observer to watch other players play. I will choose Solitaire to have access to the card decks of both sides. And this is what you see when you open the Vassal module. The game board, 2 decks of operation cards, the counters for the generals that will enter play in each year already aligned at the top, and the morale and loyalty tracks to each side, with the morale marker on top and the loyalty marker at the bottom. Now, here in Vassal, the unit pool for each provinces are within the provinces, but you would likely have them off the board, somewhere handy, and use a cap to randomly draw counters from them. But in the Vassal module, we put them in the board so as not to scroll the windows so much. If we go by the setup procedure, we see that we have the board, the pick the sides, 2 draw piles for operation cards, hand of 3 cards for each side, which I don't have, so let's do that. Then the event cards that are 2 buttons at the top here in Vassal. I don't know if you can see them. Morale markers at the top of the tracks, loyalty markers at the bottoms, year markers in 1809, leader markers in the year track, unit pools divided by provinces, a cap, and the dice. Great. We are good to go. The setup is completed with this short 1809 round that starts with the Patriot player playing 2 year event cards of the 3 the player has available for 1809. Let's see them. One is the Patria Vieja card, featuring José Miguel Carrera. That card turns the western provinces of Chile and Araucanía, the province south of Chile, to the federal side. Chilean federals will not help Buenos Aires Patriots, but at least they'll keep the royalists busy, and those provinces will not produce royal armies for a while, which is always welcome. Then we may play the Rise of the Juntas card, featuring Pedro Domingo Murillo. That likewise turns the Charcas and Upper Peru provinces to the federal side. Those are to the north, more or less where Bolivia is today. Those rebellion in 1809 in Potosí and La Paz actually did quite a lot to mess things up between the Spanish viceroys in Lima and in Buenos Aires. Finally, the Viceroy Deposed card featuring the everlasting Dr. Francia. It says it turns the provinces of Litoral and Paraguay to the federal, but it is actually the Paraguay and Misiones provinces to the east of the map. That has already been corrected, but the update hasn't reached the Vassal module yet. Never mind. Now, which 2 of these 3 cards should we play? Well, I guess I'll go with the Rise of the Juntas card so as to get Upper Peru and Charcas into federal hands. I'll put the federal loyalty markers in each province to indicate they are no longer under royal control. Then I randomly draw 2 combat units from each province combat unit pool. I get 2 infantry units in Charcas, and then in Upper Peru I draw a leader that doesn't count as a unit, so now I have 2 units and a leader. General Arenales in Upper Peru. Then I'll play the Viceroy Deposed card and turn both the Misiones and Paraguay provinces to federal control. I'll put federal loyalty markers on both provinces and draw 2 random units from each province unit pool. I should have played this card next round if I wanted to keep it historically accurate. The rebellion in Chile actually happened first, but not by a long shot, so this variant is plausible enough for the game. This time no leaders were drawn, which might be good news for any side trying to rush and capture these territories. We'll see. Then I need to add 4 random combat units in Buenos Aires. That was the former capital of the Viceroyalty of the Rio de la Plata, and is now the capital of the Patriot Littoral province. I get 2 cavalry units, which is great, since the literal cavalry is particularly good, then a regular infantry unit and an artillery battery. And I put the Patriot leader for 1809, the old General Saavedra, with them. Then I add the bulk of the Royal Army in Cusco, randomly drawing 4 combat units from the Royal Units pool, and I get 2 infantry regulars, 1 light infantry and 1 cavalry unit. Also, I have to randomly add a Royal combat unit to every capital of a province under Royal control. So this is why the Patriot player 1809 federal events are important, since those rebellious federal provinces will not be producing these initial royal units. So I go ahead and randomly draw royal units for each royal capital, and I get an infantry in Salta, another infantry in Córdoba, a light infantry in Mendoza, a cavalry unit in Chile, a light infantry in Araucanía, and an infantry in Montevideo along over the Atlantic. Finally, a unit from the Spain reinforcements and a unit from the Portuguese forces in Brazil become ready to be deployed. These units enter the game by means of year event cards. They will be accumulating every round, and the royalist player will need to time their arrival according to his strategy. Since you can rush the first few of them to shore up your desperate initial defenses, or you can let them build up, and then you launch a devastating offensive with a lot of them. As the Patriot player, these forces from afar will always be on your mind, haunting you to be precise. Now at this point I've placed 12 royalist units and 12 rebellious units, 8 of them federals and only 4 of them Patriot. Now the royalist player must make a final decision in this short setup turn, where to put his leader, General Goyeneche. And this is an important decision. The player could, for example, decide to place him in Montevideo and make a stand until reinforcements arrive from abroad, or use him in Córdoba to contain the advance of the Patriot forces coming out from Buenos Aires, or use him in Chile to resist the incoming rebellion, we know it's incoming, or place him north in Cusco to move the large royal garrison over the rebels in Upper Peru. Just to make it more historically accurate, I'll place General Goyeneche up in the north, and next year I'll use General Linie to try to contain the rebels in Buenos Aires. But just so you see what I mean, the generals are the key to your strategy, and you will be following them very closely around the map, yours and your enemies. Now we are leaving setup behind, and we are starting the first real round of the game, 1810. In the turn, the royalist player will get General Linie, and the Patriot player will get General Belgrano. As the rules state, the Patriot player always goes first, and then players alternate playing one card at a time. The Patriot player will play an year event card first. He may choose to rush his armies to capture Córdoba instead, but the royalist player would then use General Linie to defend Chile, and this is risky. He uses the Patria Vieja card, featuring the Chilean General José Miguel Carrera, to turn the provinces of Chile and Araucanía to the federal control. For playing that card, the Patriot morale marker goes down from 8 to 7 in the Patriot morale track. 2 random provincial units are placed in each capital, but since those capitals already are occupied by royalist units, 2 battles will ensue, whatever. Note that no leaders were drawn from the provincial unit pool, since you can only play operation cards for the tactics effect when you have a leader present in the battle. If the royalist player would have played a leader like Goyeneche or Liniers to counter this rebellion, being able to play a battle tactics and rally back disorder units could prove decisive in these battles. Anyways, since that is not the case, let's resolve these 2 battles as they are. I'll move the units to the battle box for you to see them clearly. There will be no flanking or bombardment, since there are no leaders or artillery units. The Patriot player rolls from left to right a 3 and a 4, which means both his units deal damage. The royalist player rolls a 3, which means his cavalry will also deal damage. Damage is simultaneous, the Patriot cavalry will take the hit and become disorganized, and the Royalist cavalry will take both hits and be destroyed. The destroyed Royal cavalry is returned to the Royal units pool. The remaining Chilean units are placed back in Santiago, now in full control of the capital after their first baptism by fire. The Royalist side loses a morale for the lost battle, and the marker is now at 7. Now let's do the battle in Araucanía. Now the interesting thing about Concepción, the capital city of Araucanía, is that it has a fortress, so the local garrison may choose to retreat to the fortress, and they do, of course. Now the attackers are besieging the fortress. They may choose to storm the fortress, but they will not do that, because at this point the fortress can take a lot of pounding before falling. Alternatively, they may choose to bombard the fortress, since they have the artillery and the besieged forces do not, so they cannot counterfire. They can do just one bombardment round, since they were activated with a 1 operation point value card. The Patriot player rolls the die for the Federal forces and misses. So now the Federals are in control of the city and of the province, but they didn't manage to dislodge the royal garrisons, so there will be no morale loss for anyone, at least until the siege is resolved. The fortress, on the other hand, is being supplied by sea, because the Pacific Ocean, well, both oceans actually, start under royalist control. This will change further on according to some year events. But as long as the fortress remains supplied by sea, the isolation effects will not apply, so the Federals will have to bombard the fortress to the ground, which could take a lot of activations with that single lousy cannon, or wait for a while until they muster enough muscle to storm the fortress and take it. Anyways, I don't see any of those things happening anytime soon. So the Royalists effectively, at least for now, own a port in southern Chile they can land their units on. And that is very bad news for the Patriot player. Now turn passes to the Royalist player, and it starts by playing his own year event card. Now the player has 2 events he may play. One of them is confiscation of property. This event causes that during this year, when the Royalist player regains control of a rebellious province, he gets a supplies unit in the reconquered capital by confiscating the property of the rebel leaders that at this stage were for the most part of some means. This would mean going after the Federals while they are weak, but leaving the Patriots in Buenos Aires free to expand and consolidate. Alternatively, the Royalist player may resort to the conservative powers of the Catholic Church and play the excommunication event. This event causes that during this year, federal provinces do not receive replacements or reinforcements in the year-end maintenance phase, meaning that common people will be more reluctant to join the forces of those heretic rebel leaders. So this is an important decision for the Royalist player, since if he is going for the offensive against the federal forces to regain the lost provinces, he would choose the confiscation of property event. But if he chooses to leave the federal provinces aside for now and concentrating on containing the Patriot from Buenos Aires, the real enemy, he would choose the excommunication event, so the federal armies don't grow any larger in the meantime. Is that clear? Yeah, hope so. Again, to keep it somewhat historically accurate, I'll go ahead and play the excommunication event. The Royalist player will try to contain Buenos Aires first, use the church to keep the federals from growing stronger, amass some more troops in Cusco, and then next year use Goyeneche to ram them all over. So to do that, the Royalist player sends General Linier to Córdoba. Linier has royal units in Córdoba, in Cuyo, in Salta, and in the Banda Oriental. That's 4 of them, but they are scattered all over the place. He must try to bring them together and keep them alive. The Patriot forces in Buenos Aires under General Belgrano are also 4 units strong, but they are all assembled together. Will they go east for the Banda Oriental? Will they go north against the federals in Misiones and Paraguay? or will they head west against Liniers and the scattered royal forces? Let's find out. It's a Patriot player turn now. So the Patriot player reduces its morale in the morale track from 7 to 6 and plays an operations card for its operation point value of 2, meaning he can activate a leader and move a force with him up to 2 locations using normal connections. He uses those points to move General Belgrano with the cavalry and infantry from Buenos Aires through Santa Fe and up to Córdoba to attack the Royalists under General Liniers. A battle then ensues. I love that word. I don't know how to pronounce it, but I love the word. Ensues, whatever. But the Royalist player has a tactical surprise for his opponent, and he plays the hastily withdrawal card that allows his forces to retreat from battle before the engagement occurs. The player may retreat south and try to link up with his forces in Cuyo, or retreat north to make a stand in Salta. We'll do that, so Liniers and the Royal Infantry head north to Santiago del Estero. Patriots took the capital of the province, but since there was no battle, the Royalist side doesn't lose morale. Now it's a Royalist player turn. The Royalist player plays an operation card for its operation points value of 2 and activates General Liniers to move the Royal Infantry north into the province of Salta, far away from the Patriots now in Córdoba. For playing the card, the Royalist side morale goes down to 6. Now it's the Patriot player turn. He can either go north with his full force after Liniers, or first go west and try to secure the province of Cuyo. With royal forces in Montevideo, Cuyo and Salta, Liniers is making the Patriots play the cat and mouse game. Belgrano decides to go straight after Liniers and uses a powerful 3-point card for its operation points value. With that, he moves all his forces north from Córdoba through Santiago and Tucumán and into Salta. Another battle ensues. This time there will be no hastily withdrawal for the Royalists. General Belgrano lines up his 3 units and plays the powerful high ground card for its battle tactics effect. The card will grant his unit a +1 combat factor for the duration of battle. Belgrano wants this battle to be decisive. On the contrary, General Liniers wants this battle to be as indecisive as possible, so he plays the Armed Servants card for its battle effect. The cards allow him to add a militia unit to his forces he plans to use as a buffer for his escape. The Patriot player rolls 3, 4, and 2, meaning his 3 units score hits. The Royalist player rolls 6, 5, and 1, meaning only his militia score a hit, probably because the Royal Infantry was ready to get the hell out of there. The Patriot player assigns a hit to his unit, but it is rallied back by the leadership of General Belgrano. The Royalist player has 3 hits to assign. The first one goes to the militia unit, that is a single-step unit, so it is destroyed, and the other 2 go to each of the infantry unit. But General Liniers rallies back one of them, so only one of the units ends up flipped to its disordered side. Now General Liniers is ready to bulk out of here and make Belgrano chase him to the end of the world if he can. But here's the thing, cavalry can now pursue the retreating forces, and Patriot cavalry from Buenos Aires is the best. So the Patriot player rolls a 2 and a 2, meaning 2 more hits on the retreating infantry, and those cannot be rallied back. Thus, Liniers manages to extract himself from the battle, but at a great cost, now having only a disordered infantry unit at his disposal. Moreover, for retreating from battle, the Royalist side morale goes down to 5. The good news is he did manage to extract himself from battle, so Belgrano will now need to chase him to Errant to finish him off, and the farther he gets the Patriots away from Cuyo and the Banda Oriental, the better. Now it's the Royalist player turn again. The Royalist player uses a 2-point operation cards to move his forces in Montevideo to Salto, just north of Buenos Aires, on the other side of the Paraná River Delta. If you remember, the old General Saavedra is in Buenos Aires with an artillery unit guarding the Patriot capital. Since the River Plate is in Royalists' hand at the start of the game, those guys from Montevideo may jump in and take the city if it is left vacant. Patriots won't be able to do that until Admiral William Brown shows up in the year events and the Rio de la Plata passes to Patriot control. In any case, those guys in Salto will give the Patriot players something more to sweat about. For playing the card, Royalist side morale drops to 4. It is the Patriot player turn, and he finally decides he cannot keep chasing that French scoundrel any longer. Córdoba is threatened from the west, and Buenos Aires is threatened from the east, and he is being lured by Liniers more and more to the north. So he uses a powerful 3-point operation cards to get Belgrano and 2 combat units back to Córdoba and occupy the strategic central position, hoping that wherever the Royalist player makes his move, his forces will be able to respond, even if it means leaving a single unit defending Salta against the disordered forces of Liniers. For playing the card, the Patriot morale goes down to 4. Now the initiative is with the Royalists player. Now, we all know that handling the strategic initiative to your opponent is a dangerous thing to do in an operational level wargame. The Royalist player will use a powerful 3-point operation cards to advance the bulk of his forces out of Cusco under the command of General Goyeneche up into Upper Peru through Puno and into La Paz to crush the federal forces and hang that rabble-rousing traitor Arenales in front of the Audiencia. Wasn't planning to do that until next year, but since he has the time. For playing the card, the Royalist side morale goes down to 3. Now the Royalist player forms his troops and decides not to play any tactics card, trusting that his superior numbers and the leadership of General Goyeneche will be enough. The Patriot player, now under control of the federal forces, decides now is his time to be a jerk, and uses the last stand card for its battle effect, meaning the federal forces will deal as many hits as they take the round they are eliminated. This could mean, for example, that if all units of both sides score hits, the federal forces would be wiped out, clearly, but the Royal Army of Goyeneche would receive a total of 6 hits, and that would be a Pyrrhic victory indeed. But it appears that this is definitely not what is going to be happening. When the dice are rolled, the Royalist player rolls 4, 1, 1, and 5, meaning just 2 hits. The Patriot player rolls 2 6s, so neither federal unit scores a hit. Not off to a great start, you guys. General Arenales assigns 1 hit to each unit and then rallies back 1 unit to its full strength again. Let's go ahead and the second round of combat. The Royalist player rolls 3, 5, 5 and a 1, meaning only 2 hits, while the Patriot player rolls 2 and 2, meaning also 2 hits. That's better. Arenales assigns both hits to the light infantry and the unit is destroyed. Goyeneche rallies back 1 hit and assigns the other to the regular infantry. This is certainly taking longer than expected by the Royalists. It must be this altitude sickness thing or something. Let's get to the third round of combat. The Royalist player this time rolls 1, 6, 3 and 5, again scoring 2 hits, and the Patriot player rolls a 1, scoring a single hit. So the federal forces are finally destroyed and Arenales is captured, tried, found guilty of treason, shipped back to Cadiz and remains under the custody of the Spanish Inquisition, who force him every day for the rest of his life to play Monopoly. Now, as a result of the brave last stand effect of the federal rebels, the Royalist player must assign 3 hits to his forces, choosing to disorganize all his forces, but the cavalry, which Goyeneche rallies back to full strength. For losing the battle, the Patriot side morale goes down to 3. The Royalists will regain control of Upper Peru, which they were planning to do next year, and confiscate the hell out of every federal, and now the chance is gone, and their most powerful force has been beaten up pretty badly. But the victory hurt the morale of the Patriot side, pushing it to near exhaustion, which is good. So let's see what the Patriot player now decides to do with his last couple of activations. The Patriot player uses a 2-point card and a generic leader to move the cavalry from Córdoba through San Luis and into Mendoza, the capital city of the province of Cuyo. Belgrano must stay in Córdoba to repel any counterattack from Liniers in the north or the Royalists in the Banda Oriental. The Patriot player is forced to attack Cuyo with the bare minimum and hope for the best. The Patriot player rolls a 5, scoring no hits, and the Royalist player rolls a 2, scoring a hit. Things look dire for the Patriots. In the second round of combat, the Patriot player rolls a 1, scoring a hit, and the Royalist player rolls a 6, scoring no hits. Now things are evening out. The third round of combat should be decisive. The Patriot player rolls a 1, destroying the disorder Royal Light Infantry, and the Royalist player rolls a 5, scoring no hits. Well, that was close. The Patriots are now in control of the Cuyo province. For losing the battle, the Royalist morale goes down to 2, meaning this is their last activation to attack. You need 2 points of morale if you want to attack. One to attack, and the other one in case you lose the battle. Let's see what the Royalist player tries to do with his last chance to attack. Well, it seems pretty obvious, really. It is either attack Buenos Aires from the Banda Oriental without a leader against an enemy leader defending from a fortress, or attack Salta with a leader against a leaderless enemy and no fortress. So the Royalist player reduces his side morale to 1 and uses a 2-point card to make a last advance of Liniers and his disorder forces from Errant to Salta to try to take back the provincial capital. The Royalist player announces he will be using a tactics card to compensate for the weakness of his disorder forces, but the Patriot player uses his own hastily withdrawal card to avert the engagement and retreats the Patriot forces south to Tucumán. Now sure that the Royalists don't have enough morale to make an assault on Buenos Aires, the Patriot player uses a powerful 3-point card to activate General Belgrano and move the forces from Córdoba to the north, to Santiago del Estero and Tucumán, where they pick up the retreating forces from Salta, and finally to the capital city of Salta province, to meet that pesky General Liniers once and for all. For playing the card, the Patriot side morale also goes down to 1, so this will be also the last attack of the Patriot player. A battle would have ensued, but the Royalist player uses a leader retreat card to flee the battlefield and hides again in the deep jungles of Oran. General Liniers, the French mercenary who just refuses to die. With his last activation, the Royalist player gets his forces back to Montevideo, and then the Patriot player moves his forces from Buenos Aires to occupy Córdoba. Having both sides exhausted their morale, the operations phase is now over, and the year-end maintenance phase starts. In this phase, the first thing you do is update the loyalty of the province to the one of the troops occupying the capital city. In this case, we change the provinces of Córdoba, Salta and Cuyo from Royalist to Patriot. And we changed the province of Upper Peru from Federal to Royalists. Since we are changing the loyalty from Federal, it doesn't matter if you change it to Royal or Patriot, as long as you change it from Federal. Since we are changing the loyalty from Federal, we will add the guerrilla market to the province, and we'll see what that means in a second. Next, we update the loyalty marker for each side to reflect how many loyal provinces they have. In this case, the Patriots have 4 and the Royalists have only 2, both still far from the winning condition. Then we apply local attrition to units in hostile provinces, and that is only the case of the fugitive Linier, but his forces are already disordered and his command rating would have nonetheless prevented the effect. Then we have isolation effect on sieges, but the only siege ongoing is the one in the fortress of Concepcion in southern Chile. And that fortress is supplied by sea, so the effect doesn't apply. Finally, we'll add replacements, meaning flipping back the disordered units to the full strength side, provided they are in a friendly province. And that would only be that cavalry down in Cuyo, since if you remember at the start of the round, the Royalist year event excommunication stated that federal provinces don't get replacements. Neither do the forces of Goyeneche in Upper Peru, because they are federal guerrillas in the province. And then we add one random unit from each provincial unit pool to each capital as reinforcements. Again, no federal provinces will receive reinforcements due to the excommunication event, and no reinforcements are levied in Upper Peru because of the federal guerrillas. So that's it, a brief overview of the rules and components, the setup, and the complete first round of the game. Hope it gives you a useful perspective of what the game is about, with the caveat, again, that everything you see here is a prototype and nothing you see here is final. If you like what you saw, please consider supporting our work, pre-ordering the game at Legion Wargames. Check the link in the description. I may consider doing a full turnaround gameplay if we hit the required number of pre-orders before the deadlines of my next project I'm working on start to come in. Spoiler alert, it is a Matrix game on the French Revolution and it is awesome. So please take a look at the pre-order page at Legion Wargames. I'll point Keith and Matt to any comments or questions you may leave about the game, and maybe share it with your friends. Hopefully some of them will also like it. As always, thank you very much for tuning in to Eurojuegos Buenos Aires. Remember to subscribe to the channel, because I don't post much and you will otherwise totally miss when I do. It's been nice to talk to you again. See you next time.